I need to give you a body of work so you can understand. Let me go to Trap so he can teach me. Let me go to Trap so I can understand. The reason why we can't effectively dominate the market is because we don't truly understand what's going on in the market. And we don't understand what's going on in the market, how can we function inside of the chaos? What's good, fam? It's your boy, the Wall Street Trap, and right now we're going to talk about utility company breakdown. So a lot of investors look for utility companies for safety. They often have the good dividends, and you often say they're not going nowhere for a while. But we want to dig into that in this session right here because I want to show you a couple of things that you need to look to when you're looking at utility companies. So what are your utility companies? Like your Next Era Energy, your Duke Energy, your Dominion Energy. These energy companies, the Entergy is an energy company. If you're from New Orleans, you know about energy. That's an energy company. So a lot of times these companies have heavy infrastructure. A lot of times these companies pay big dividends. And so today in this segment of breaking down the utility company breakdown, we are going to dig into what you should be looking at with utility companies and if you need to put them inside your portfolio or not. Come trap with me. So the first thing we're gonna look at is the dividend performance. So when we're looking at a utility company, because you're often buying these companies not based on stock price, right? Because we're gonna write it out right here, dividend performance. Most utility companies don't have great stock price performance, so you wanna make sure that the company's dividend is always growing. Listen, when you're looking at the utility companies, of course, you want your stock to go up, but a lot of times the utility companies won't have great stock performance. So if you look at their 5-year chart, most of them won't be up 100%. Most of them probably be up 30%, 40%, somewhere like that, because they don't just perform well, right? You buy them for the dividend. You buy them for the cash payout. So when you buy that dividend company, you want to make sure that their cash dividend is growing at least once a year. At least once a year. You want to see that growing, right? So you want to look for companies that are growing that dividend. For me, at least 10 years before you make that investment in that dividend company. You want to see at least 10 years of dividend growth. Why? There aren't many new energy companies in the game, right? So all of them have been around for quite some time, which means they should be established. So if they can't pay that dividend at least 10 years in a row, then that means we have a problem. Why? Because an established company that isn't able to consistently pay that dividend means a company that you don't want to be a part of. If they got to freeze that dividend, if they got to cut that dividend, if they got to suspend that dividend, you don't want to be part of that when it comes to a utility company. Next, we're going to go to this next slide, right? The next thing is the debt load, right? How much debt the company is holding. Now, the thing about utility companies is they often hold a lot of debt. Let's read what we got right here. They often carry lots of debt because they own significant infrastructure that requires lots of upkeep and upgrades with equal high costs. Now, before I get to the last part, let's just talk about that. So a lot of the energy companies, I remember when I was doing plants, I was working in power plants, I worked in 2 energy plants. And the upkeep inside of those things are massive. Now, as the company produces profits, they also have to do what's called upgrades. So you got to upgrade machinery, right? Machinery that may be depreciating, machinery through wear and tear. So you got to upgrade that machinery. That costs money, right? But then the upkeep, we're not even talking about the upgrade. We just talk about the maintenance of it, the maintenance of the transformers, the maintenance of the machines, the maintenance of the workers. This alone costs a lot. So we already know that the company has a lot of upkeep to be made. Also, we know the company has a lot of what? Upgrades that have to be made. And we got to look at regulatory policy. So what's the policy? What's in the policy around that company? So utility companies can be kind of like difficult to invest in because you're only getting a small profit margin with doing that. You're planning strategically and specifically for the dividend. Now, as we go a little further than that, let's look at 60% of total capital. One of the things I say is because you know that the utility company is going to have a lot of debt. If you look at all of them, from Southern Company, a lot of these companies are going to have a lot of debt because it just costs so much. So how much of that debt is too much debt, right? So because we understand that they got to have a lot of debt, what we want to do is see, is it more than 60%? If it's under 50%, that's even better. 60% of capital. So when you go look at the debt they have, long-term debt and the short-term debt, you want to look at the profits that they have, the capital, the profits that they have. Is the debt 50% or 60% of the capital or the profits that they have? Now, I'm going to go a little deeper with you. If they got more debt than profit, I don't care what the name is. We don't want no part of that, right? Because I know some of y'all gonna be like, Trap, the company ain't going nowhere for a while. Listen, we're not investing in companies just because they're not going nowhere for a while. We investing in companies that can consistently either grow for us in stock price or consistently give us great dividends. Now, I want to show you something. Because we understand that the company may have a high debt load, what we want to also look for is this. Watch this, y'all. Is the debt increasing or are they paying it down? So that's why we're not going to be hungry for a dividend with this company. Why? Because if they are at least paying down some of the debt, then that gives us better stock performance, and it also gives us better chance that later on down the line, our dividend can be increasing. Just a side note for this, dividends actually help the stock price go up. It actually helps the performance of the stock. That's why, one, you got to reinvest your dividends. We're going to drip them. The dividend reinvestment plan. We're going to drip them. If you aren't having them dripping, I just need you to go to your portfolio, go to where your dividends at, and then put automatically reinvest. This is a must. This is a must. If you don't need it for income right now, we need you to reinvest those dividends so that those dividends now buy you more shares over time, which also increase the dividend payment. So I'm looking for my dividend, the cost of profits. I'm looking for the debt to be at least no greater than 60. But if I can get it cheaper than 60, like 50% of the profit, I'm okay with that. Meaning, if you had $100, right, and you had $40 worth of debt, that's 60%. You feel what I'm saying? So we want to play it. We want to kind of play it like that. All right, let's go a little further. All right, this one gonna catch a lot of people right here. This one is high yields, right? So companies could be pushing out too much profit. We kind of covered that last time. So because we understand that the dividends on these utility companies are ultimately massive, right? 5%, 6%. They can be really big yields. What I want us to do is say, okay, if the yield is big, again, we're going to go look at how much of that debt is, but also watch this, y'all. So one thing you're going to learn about this is as stock prices go up, yields come down. As stock prices go down, yields go up. Right? So what you want to do is you want to find a company that's always, I'm going to put this, IC. You want a company that's always increasing. Why? Because if the stock price is going up and the yield is going down, because the yield is a portion of the stock price, when it comes to the dividend yield represents what portion of the stock price that you're getting paid out. So if a stock price is going up, and that yield isn't going down at least once a year, they're not increasing that yield to keep it up. That's why companies increase the yield a certain percentage. So if a company pays a 6% dividend, if they want to consistently pay a 6% dividend, then what they'll do is if the stock is going up, they'll increase that dividend to whatever to keep it at 6%. If the stock is going down, if it's not having a good year, then they'll increase the dividend a little bit less. I gave you a game right there. I give you a game right there. So one of the things we want to see is we want to see a company that the yield is at least consistent with what it's supposed to be doing. If that yield is falling, now I want to talk to you about something. If a stock is going down and you see that yield going up, I don't want you to chase the yield because we got to ask ourselves this question. Why is the stock falling? Right? So I don't want you to say, well, this company got an 8% yield, but the stock is $5. that means that's a bad company. That's what we call a dividend trap. Listen, I'm putting y'all on game right here. If that stock is falling, it's the reason why that company is falling. We want to see what they're doing. What I want you to do is go understand why the company is falling, because I don't want you to invest in the company. Now, you'll look over YouTube and look all over Instagram. You'll see a lot of people talking about AT&T. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to go look at the last 3 years. I want you to go look at the last 3 to 5 years and see where the AT&T stock been at. It's been between $26 and $17. And they've been on the downside of $19 the last 2 years. I don't want to be in that company. So what that they pay a 6% dividend yield? I want to be in a company that's stable. AT&T has so much debt, the dividend isn't safe. They paused the dividend 2 times. I don't want to be in a company like that. I don't want you to be in a company like that. That is a dividend trap. So I don't want you chasing high yields. I want you to look at more solid companies that can push out profits, that can pay down debt, that can keep that yield in line. It's your boy, the Wall Street Trapper, man. Thank you for this episode, this segment. We are breaking down utility companies. Salute.